Hello and welcome to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. I'm thrilled you joined us today for what I believe will be a transformative conversation about recognizing, honoring, and leveraging the incredible assets that exist within our diverse communities. I'm Dr. Crystal L. Clemens, founder and CEO of Our Village Consulting, and I've dedicated over 15 years of my career to a simple but powerful belief. Every student, every family, and every community possesses incredible wealth that, when recognized and cultivated, can transform educational outcomes. As someone who has spent my career in school counseling and counselor education, I've witnessed firsthand how traditional deficit-based thinking can limit our vision of what's possible. But I've also seen the magic that happens when we shift our perspective to recognize the cultural wealth that surrounds us every day. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays is our weekly space to explore, celebrate, and learn how to leverage the diverse forms of capital that exist in our communities, what researcher Terry Yasso calls community cultural wealth. We're talking about the aspirational capital that drives families to dream big for their children, the linguistic capital found in multilingual households, the familial capital that creates strong support networks, the social capital built through community connections, the navigational capital that helps families persist through challenges, and the resistant capital that emerges from communities advocating for change. Each Wednesday, we'll dive deep into practical strategies for identifying cultural wealth in your school or community, building authentic partnerships that honor diverse perspectives, creating programming that builds on existing community assets, challenging systems that perpetuate deficit thinking, and developing your own cultural competence as an educator or leader. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays isn't just about changing how we think. It's about changing how we act. It's about building the kind of inclusive, asset-based educational communities where every child can thrive. So let's begin this journey together. Let's challenge ourselves to see wealth where others might see deficits. Let's build bridges where others might see barriers. Let's create the villages our children deserve. Welcome back to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. Today we are discussing social capital, and we're going to specifically discuss how it differs from familial capital, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And this distinction is important and it matters because it's necessary to understand the different types of relationship wealth that can help you build a more comprehensive support system and recognize the diverse forms of community assets. Social capital refers to networks of people and community resources that provide instrumental and emotional support to navigate society's institutions. While familial capital focuses more on kinship and family networks and things like that, social capital emphasizes peer networks, community organizations, and institutional connections. Here's the key difference. Familial capital comes from extended family and chosen family relationships, while social capital develops through community participation, organizational involvement, and peer connections. Both are forms of relationship wealth, but they function differently, and they require different leadership strategies to leverage. Traditional approaches often focus exclusively on professional networking. So your business contacts, LinkedIn connections, industry relationships, that sort of thing. Cultural wealth approaches it differently, and it recognizes that community networks, peer support systems, and grassroots organizational connections often provide more accessible and culturally responsive resources for navigating institutions. Research shows that communities with rich social capital networks have better health outcomes, higher educational achievement, and greater economic mobility, regardless of individual family resources. Social capital is collective communal wealth. So let's think about the parents who connects with other parents at school pickup and learns about a free tutoring program at the library. That community network provided information that formal school communications never reached them with. That is social capital creating access. Or consider the new teacher who joins a community organization and meets a retired educator who becomes an informal mentor, sharing classroom management strategies and curriculum resources, right? See, that's a peer network developed through community involvement, not a formal mentoring program. The employee who attends services at a local mosque and meets someone who helps her navigate workplace discrimination issues because they experienced something similar at their company. That's a faith community network that provided that support that HR policies could not or would not address. Manager who volunteers with a youth sports league and connects with small business owners who later become vendors for his company. Those community relationships created business opportunities that formal procurement processes wouldn't have generated. See, these are informal peer and community networks that create pathways to information, resources, and support that formal institutional systems often fail to provide. Social capital often gets organized through community institutions, churches, mosques, temples, other faith organizations, cultural associations and ethnic community groups, neighborhood associations and tenant organizations, volunteer groups and civic clubs, youth programs, and community centers. These organizations function as social capital infrastructure, if you will. They create regular opportunities for relationship building, and they connect people with similar experiences and needs. And they often provide services that fill gaps in formal institutional systems. For leaders, these community organizations represent partnership opportunities and sources of institutional intelligence. The community center that offers after-school programs knows which families are struggling with childcare. The faith organization that runs a food pantry understands food insecurity patterns in your community. The cultural association that supports immigrant families knows barriers that the newcomers face. But here's what's critical. Effective partnership with community organizations requires reciprocity and respect. These aren't just outreach targets. They're social capital infrastructure that often functions more effectively than formal systems. Leaders should approach community organizations as co-equal partners with expertise and resources, not as service recipients or communication channels. So how are we going to build and leverage this social capital? First thing you have to do is map the social capital infrastructure in your community. Where are the organizations, the networks, the social groups? Where are they? What kind of support and information do they provide? How do people actually access the resources and the information in your community? Once you do that, then you have to create the partnerships with these community organizations that respect their social capital role. Instead of just asking them to distribute your flyers, ask them what they're seeing in the community and how your institution could better serve shared goals. Provide resources that strengthen their capacity, not just programs that meet your institutional metrics. Facilitate peer network development within your organization. Create regular opportunities for partners to build relationships with each other, not just with institutional leadership. Parent groups, employee resource groups, student affinity organizations, and peer support networks all build social capital that makes your institution more responsive and effective. Also, y'all need to hire from the community organizations. See, people who are active in the community networks bring social capital into your institution. They understand community needs, they have trusted relationships, and they know how to bridge formal institutions and grassroots community resources. It's important to remember that social capital requires sustained relationship building. You can't just show up once and expect to tap into the community networks. You can't just do that. See, authentic partnership means showing up consistently, sharing power, and contributing to community goals, even when there's no immediate institutional benefit. Now, social capital can either reinforce inequity or it can advance justice. It depends on how the leaders approach it. See, exclusive networks create gatekeeping that prevents marginalized communities from accessing resources. The inclusive networks create the pathways that increase access and opportunity. Traditional social capital research often focused on elite networks, country club connections, alumni associations, and professional organizations that primarily serve already privileged communities. Cultural wealth approaches recognize that working class communities, immigrant communities, and communities of color have sophisticated social capital networks that function differently but are equally valuable. For example, The informal information network among custodial staff in a school district might be more effective at disseminating certain kinds of information than official administrative communications. The WhatsApp group among your immigrant parents might provide more responsive support than the school's official family engagement programs. Effective leaders recognize these different forms of social capital and work to bridge rather than replace them. This might mean translating official information into formats that work in informal community networks, compensating community leaders for their relationship facilitation work, or adapting institutional processes to align with community communication patterns. Also, be aware that building social capital across difference requires addressing power dynamics. When you ask marginalized communities to share their networks with your institution, you're asking them to risk their own community relationships on your institutional credibility. You need to honor that trust and honor it carefully. All right, so here is this week's Cultural Wealth Wednesday challenge. Map 3 community organizations or informal networks that provide social capital infrastructure in your area. Schedule conversations to learn how they support community members and how to explore authentic partnership possibilities. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell for Cultural Wealth Wednesdays, and in the comments, I want you to share an example of social capital that is creating access or opportunity within your community. Let's learn from each other's experiences with community relationship wealth.